My name is April McLean. I'm a dancer and choreographer, and I own Infused Dance Studio. I also run a company of 4 dancers, Retrograde Dance. Retro's main focus is storytelling, but we really try to steer away from some of the more abstract stuff and get into the nitty-gritty of really telling a story, because our goal is to connect with audience members so that we can discuss social justice and trials and victories. I would say that the show is based on almost my entire childhood, and it moves through this arc of the days of the connection with my mother and feeling that joyfulness into the shift to the losing her to this man that entered our life, and then losing her completely as I was given into foster care, and just running away from home and that slow climb out. The lobby display came about halfway through the rehearsal process. I was trying to ask myself, how do we prep them for this journey? How do I get them personally connected before they see the choreography? So there's already this preconceived emotional attachment to what's happening. So as you walked into the space, I started with this table that had all these old photos of myself as a child, and pictures of my mom, and pictures of me being an actual kid. One step further is this table that is just this barren, single lamp, no shade, and it's just case notes everywhere. And they are my actual case notes, police reports and psychology reports. And then the final display was present day life. And I purposefully made that full of color. There was like purples and yellows and reds and vibrant pictures, and it was such a representation of the community that I've built, the community of family and friends and dancers. And I loved the difference between the middle and last table, because it shows you can really come. I knew I wanted to do an evening length concert, and I didn't necessarily want it to be like a recital in that it was just a bunch of pieces that had no through line, so I definitely wanted a through line. We had just done a show for a local nonprofit, and we were telling stories of some of their sex trafficking survivors. So I was thinking, what other issue would I like to explore? And actually, one of my best friends, Julie Simon, said, just do it about you. You need to do this already, and gave me a great push in that direction. And the show ends in the victory of today. I mean, I invited everybody on stage at the end because there was a lot of foster youth in the audience. There was a lot of survivors in the audience. And the goal of inviting all those people on stage was to say, if you do feel lonely now, and you might be, there is a community that you can develop outside of what people call family that's still available to you. The whole show was such a roller coaster, because for every piece, I really did find an emotional connection that I was not expecting. But for the most part, I was just filled with gratitude that these beautiful dancers gave me their time and energy to do this thing, and that people actually came to see it. It was a miracle. There wasn't proceeds in the traditional sense. What we did was paid for the youth to come. Any nonprofit that wanted to bring their youth, we would get sponsorships to cover the cost of those seats. And that will allow us to invite all of these kids. And so we were able to marry donors to kids to bring them into the show. If you have been traumatized, if you have been a foster youth, you need to find a balance between compassion for yourself and an intolerance to keep living in that space. You have to be able to love yourself enough to say you deserved better. Once you enter the real world, it is now on you to move past that narrative and find your own way in life. You don't get to live in that space forever. I think there's a few ways that performances like this can make an impact. The first is that, when you are in foster care, you're forced to go to counseling, and you're forced to talk, and you're not always ready to talk. And to take the trauma and funnel it through dance, it gives a different way to connect, to feel, without having to sit in front of somebody and talk about it. So for one, it helps the audience feel seen, oh, she did that, and she also came out of it, and perhaps I can too, without me having to sit across from them and actually have a conversation, which they've had a million people try to do that with them. So in one way, it's just kind of another language for them to connect to. It also brings in people who have no real connection to trauma. They've never been traumatized. I think that there's endless ways that dance and art in general can help to bridge all of those gaps. And this is just a drop in the bucket. It's like one show. But that one show, I received a few emails afterwards, like it definitely connected with some of the youth. So it's worth it. All that work just for one kid would be totally worth it. I own a business. I'm happily married. I have a huge community. And when you're in foster care, that's not even anything that you could even fathom. Like, you can't even fathom that you might go somewhere beyond where you are right now. And I really hope that they see I'm not extraordinary. It's just make a choice.